Alright guys, today we're going to be comparing the Moto G8 Power to the Galaxy A31 as requested. So let's go ahead and get started. The prices on both of these phones are about the same price on Amazon right now. I will leave the links down below. So let's go ahead and get started here. So both of these phones hardware wise are plastic phones, and they both have a weight to them since they both have a 5000 milliamp battery. So that is one thing you're going to notice. They don't feel cheap at all. They have a really nice weight even though they are plastic phones. Now the Moto G8 has a water repellent design, so you can, it's basically like splash proof, so you can get it wet, but I would not submerge it. And you don't have any sort of IP rating or anything on the A31. So you have USB Type-C on both of these guys. Of course, you have your headphone jack, and you also have a quad camera setup on both of these guys. As you can see, for the design, I kind of like the square design on the Galaxy A31. It's one of my favorites, and you have the more traditional design on the Moto G8 Power here, which also looks very good. Now when you turn both phones around, you will notice the first difference with both of these phones is going to be the display. So you have a punch hole versus a water drop notch. Me personally, I really love the punch hole display. I just think it looks a little bit more immersive than the notch. Now you have an IPS display on the Moto G8. It's a 6.4 inch 1080p panel, $399 for the PPI. It's actually a very good panel. It's pretty bright, it's pretty colorful, viewing angles are really good, and like I said, that PPI is pretty sharp. So overall it's a nice display, especially with the punch hole. But I really love the A31 display. I do think it's better than the G8s because it's a Super AMOLED display, and it's just more color accurate, it's more vibrant. You have a 6.4 inch display. It is 1080p 411 for the PPI, so slightly higher, but you're not going to really notice it. Me personally, I always prefer the Super AMOLED displays. I just think they look really beautiful. So it is kind of a trade-off, the punch hole versus the notch, and then you have the Super AMOLED versus the IPS. So you're gonna have to make that decision here, but they're both very good displays. So you have Android 10 on the Moto G8 and also on the A31. You have One UI 2.0, and you pretty much have like a stock version of Android 10 on the G8. A lot of people like the stock version. A lot of people like Samsung skin. Again, it's going to come down to personal preference. There's more customizations and more features in One UI 2.0 that you can take advantage of, like secured folders and stuff like that. Motorola does throw in a couple of things in their Moto app, but it's not as much stuff as in this One UI 2.0, but it is much cleaner, and to me it's a little bit more faster, especially when it comes to animations and just animation glitching and stuff like that. You won't really notice that so much on the G8 Power, but they're both very fast phones. As you can see, you have the Snapdragon 665 versus the Helio P65 on the Galaxy A31, the Adreno 610 versus the Mali G52 GPU here. Just to make it simple, as far as gaming, you're gonna have a really great experience on both of these phones, especially on the G8 Power. I think it's slightly the more powerful phone here, so you're basically going to be fine with performance, bouncing in and out of applications, gaming. They're both basically like, you know, mid to low tier chips. Now both of these phones support micro SD support, so you have expandable storage. You have 64 gigs of base storage on both of these phones and 4 gigs of RAM on both of these phones as well. So as you can see, they're pretty much evenly spec'd in that regard. You also have, again, the headphone jack. You do have stereo speakers on the Moto G8, and they are definitely louder than the single firing speaker on the A31. So that is one thing to note, which is something that I really like. One thing that the G8 lacks is NFC. So if you into NFC, you do not have that on this G8 Power. You do have NFC on the A31. You also have a physical fingerprint scanner on the G8 Power, which is definitely faster than the in-display one on the A31. But I do like the A31's fingerprint scanner. It does work. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little slower, of course, than the physical one, but it does look cooler, and it's just an overall cooler feature. To me, it just seems more up to date, so I really do love that. So one of the differences with these phones are the camera quality. You will notice a significant difference here. So we do have a quad camera setup on both, starting with the G8. You have a 16 megapixel wide, 8 megapixel telephoto, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro. It can shoot in 4K. You also have a 16 megapixel selfie camera. On the A31, you have a 48 megapixel wide, so much higher resolution, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensor, but it only shoots in 1080p. You also have 20 megapixel selfie camera. As you guys can see from these stills, I was leaning towards the A31 almost 100% of the time with photos. Color accuracy was really on point here. Dynamic range was on point. It just have a higher megapixel, so you're going to see more detailed photos as well. So overall, the Galaxy A31 does have the better cameras. The Moto GA Power's cameras are really good, considering that Motorola hasn't been the best with cameras in their budget smartphones or even in their flagship. So I do see the improvement this year, so definitely really nice. But for cameras, I do have to give it to the A31 here. So both of these phones have a 5000 milliamp battery. You have 18-watt fast charging on the G8, and you also have 15-watt fast charging on the A31. So the G8 charges slightly faster, which is something that I always appreciate. Now for battery life, you have really good battery life on both. You're getting over 10 hours of screen on time on both of these phones. So from that regard, it's not really a big deal. You will be getting around the same battery life. I've seen train tests with both of these phones going well to 12 hours of screen on time. Again, depending on how harsh you're using your phone. So for battery life, these are two really great options. So you can't go wrong with either. If you're just somebody that just hates charging your phone, these are two really great options here. So overall, if I'm picking from these phones, you're definitely going to be picking from the display and from the cameras. Software wise, is really going to come down to you as well, as far as do you like more stock Android, or do you like, you know, Samsung's features in their One UI 2.0. They have a lot. I really love the you know, normal Android with the Google integration. I think it's just really solid, and I think it works really fast. So let me know what you guys think. Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.